Hello, folks. Welcome to another House Coat Chat edition number 77. We are moving along with more and more. Hello, Justice Truth again. Here I am, live recording and talking to you and enjoying myself a nice ginger beer. Kind of hoping if my dad can kind of see that one, and maybe he had that in Australia. Anyway, it's on sale at the Co-op, and I had to have it. It's delicious, spicy ginger beer. Very, very nice. Very nice. Well, first off, I want to talk about a couple of corrections that I need to make from my last video. There was a talk that I had mentioned about a leaked document from the government on their proposal for the future of Canada, so to speak. Now, the name, the Century Initiative, trying to increase the population to 100 million, is a true story in that regard, but the paper came that I read, if I would have noticed it, it came from a satirical news site, but nonetheless, our current environment with this government, it was believable, as many other people were pointing it out online the other day as well, which is why I kind of talked about it. But unlike the CBC News or Global or 2 and 7, or 2 and 7, that is so old, I don't know if anybody really remembers 2 and 7 from Southern Alberta. Yes, all I could say is, oops, I made an error in thinking that this was truthful news. It is tongue-in-cheek satire, and I got caught up on it. But I am now letting you know that, well, look, I'm human, everybody's human, and yes, we should be all aware of our reading material as being truthful or whatever. Anyways, I will say, like I always say, please do your own reading and research and looking things up. Don't just take it from me. That's what I'm trying to say. I say in a lot of shows, I'm just a dude in a house coat. Please do your own reading and research. You need to open up your eyes and see the world how it is instead of enjoying your 15-second sound bites and being told and spoon-fed information from your major news organizations that rely on our tax dollars, right? All I could say is, chief, oops, oops, oops. My bad. But anyways, the initiative for trying to increase the population is true. The Century Initiative, John Briard, I believe, the ex conservative minister, is on board with this, as well as a couple of Carney cronies, the newer guys, so to speak, Mr. Carney and the people he's appointing into certain positions. Yes, those are happening in this fine country of ours. Also, I also want to talk about another maybe a bit of an oopsie thing is that at the Hungarian election, I honestly thought that it would be the left won. Upon further reading and actually absorbing some more information, it looks like that the EU dumped a bunch of money into their candidate that was running against Viktor Orban because almost all of the other left-wing parties in the country of Hungary didn't even poll beyond 5% to be, I guess, a legitimate for the election, so to speak. I mean, I am the dude in the house coat. Please do your own reading, but I'm telling you what I know and I've read is that, yes, there wasn't very many political parties running against Orban. 16 years, I guess he was kind of popular despite what the media and stuff has been saying for a few years. Victor and this gentleman who I don't really remember his name, but it's besides the point. And also pleased because it was his ex-wife that I heard from about boiling puppies and doing wild things in front of his children. I do not know if that story is true or false or whatever, but I heard enough of it. But that is besides the point. Just wanted a little sidebar on that because Victor and this fellow were apparently good buddies. He actually asked his buddy to go run and make another party, so to speak. He was also involved in the EU. This gentleman, who is now the Prime Minister of Hungary, basically, the President, Prime Minister, he was duly elected. He was on the EU, I guess, elective thing for Hungary. He only attended 1% of the EU PS and their parliamentary thing for the European Union. Kind of made me think, why would the EU actually want to give a bunch of money to run against Viktor Orban? Well, as I mentioned earlier, all the other left-wing parties were not polling so well. So the likes of Ursula von der Leyen and everybody else in the EU top committee, so to speak. Nobody votes for these people in the EU. That is the wildest thing I dislike about the EU, is that the population can't actually vote for Yorusa. Wild, But anyways, back to Turkey and all that. So he runs, and he is the dream of the left. He's going to open the border. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Well, on his first day in, well, I should say what Yorusa wanted on her first day after the hungry dude was elected, the new leader, is she said there would be changes in the EU. And it's like, wow, more of the bigger countries are going to basically outvote the smaller countries. So democracy in itself is now pretty much dead in the European Union, when the likes of France, Germany, and I guess in small part Spain will be controlling what goes on in the vastness of all the different countries in Europe. Anyways, so that Euros said that. So the next day, or later that day, I hear what this new leader of Hungary is saying. He's going to have tougher border controls. He is going to be kicking out a bunch of migrants on June 1st when their visas expired. He wants naturalized Hungarians to come back to Hungary to strengthen Hungary, folks. In the EU, and I know this because I've read it, the EU wants to abolish the identities of the European culture. So, like, no more like German Oktoberfest, so to speak, or, the canals of Holland, or whatever they do there. I'm going to say the red light district. That's such a cultural enrichment thing, the red light district of Holland. Oh boy, my mind could be in the gutter. Anyways, yes, all that stuff there. I just want to kind of get those couple of things out of the way, because I am the dude in the house coat. I am trying to be honest and truthful with my approach to you, and I want this to be an honest exchange. I don't want to, gloss it over, because I just did the show. I might as well do another one right away, and it kind of helped me do this show here right away, so I can clear the air, even though I don't have much of an audience. I don't ask Danica how many people may have viewed it on her Facebook page. I really don't look on my line to see how many people have actually watched it on YouTube. It's very few and low, but don't bother me. And X, I can honestly say I had a couple that went up there. One for the ostrich story, which I've done several, but one was over 2,000 views. I was happy with that, because the ostrich story is still ongoing. In fact, I haven't watched the CBC documentary. I do not know if I really want to watch it, because from my understanding from the people that were actually reporting are shocked at how the CBC did this frame job on the ostrich story, considering all these decent people from Dre Humphrey and a whole host of others have been talking about the ostrich saga as it started. Anyways, enough of the ostrich stuff. Enough of me apologizing for being, I guess, misinformation, and disinformation to my audience. I apologize. I hope I corrected. I did it up front, folks. If you noticed anything that big networks have to do when they make a correction, when they made an error or forced to correct, it's on the bottom back page of their website or in a newspaper or whatever. But I just want to let it out front there. Anyway, let's go on to Iran, because I talked a little bit too much about what's kind of going on in Canada. And I know the Iranian story, and I like it, and I've said it before. We truly do not know what's going on over there, despite what the media is telling us and everything else like that. Whether you listen to the CBC, whether you listen to Fox News or an independent reporter, Frank Vaughn, the afterburner guy on YouTube. He's kind of nice to listen to, but he is truly pro-U.S. military. So everything is gung-ho and nobody got hurt. It's still a fun listen to, because he does actually talk about the mission strikes and everything else like that. But he is pro-gung-ho USA, and we can do no wrong. So that, is just an interesting perspective there from the Afterburner channel on YouTube. Highly recommend it, folks. I do, because if you really want to know about the aircrafts and the fighting and what's going on, he does do a good take on it. Now, I don't know like an Iranian version to get their side of it, but Al Jazeera News is a very good information to hear from the other side of the thing, It's just like in Canada, what I cannot get over is when the initial thing happened and they bombed Iran, the United States and Israel, and Iran retaliated and hit all these different neighboring countries, including a base with Canadians on it. And our government and mainstream media kept quiet about it. It took somebody that was independent to say, hey, we got nailed and people were hurt. And then you even heard Mark Carney say, well, there's more than one spokesperson in the government. You're the top dog, Mr. Mark. You are the top dog, the banker of the world, so to speak. I guess you like keeping your hours, 10 till 2, right? And lunchtime off, so 3 hours of work, right? Banker's hour. This guy, I could go on. But anyways, Iran war, right? All that stuff that's going on over there. And then we're hearing, oh, the strait's closed, the strait's open. The Americans don't know what they're doing because the strait was open before, and now it's closed, and now they're blocking everybody. I just want to take a pause here and let you guys think about another thing that's going on in this world, because there is a tug of war right now between two nations wanting to be the top dog of the world. And that is the United States and China. Now, for years, China had been softly peddling I guess, a non-tactical war, meaning that they are not using bombs, planes, and military machination. They're using economic leverage to try and squeeze out America. Hence why I think there's such an aggressiveness by China on Canada. But back to Iran and stuff like that. Now, where did China get most of its oil from at a very discounted low price? There's two places, and I can tell you which two they are: Venezuela, and the other one is Iran. So what happened earlier in the year? Venezuela was taken out, or I should, yeah, was it? Well, anyways, Venezuela was taken out. Maduro was captured. What an amazing story that is. I highly recommend anybody to listen to how they did the raid from the military perspective, and even from the people that were on the ground. You could find it on YouTube. I'm not going to tell you where. That's what the search bar is for, folks. You could just type in analysis of the Venezuelan raid of Maduro in the search bar. Something will come up and you will like it. I'm not going to try and put stuff out there for you. I'm not really going to try a green screen, even though I have one and I'm tempted, but I really want to keep this low tech as possible. Just me, you, the audience. You can keep the phone down. You don't have to look at me. You can just, do your dishes, fold your clothes, just have something in the background to listen to. If that's all you need, well, I'm the perfect one for you to listen to. Yes, all that's going on. It's a big play to squeeze on China. Remember, a while back, and this is a shock, and this happened during the Biden years, which tells me that there are people above the presidential level doing these orders. And Putin has stated this. After all, how many presidents has Putin been through? He has been through George Bush, he's been through Obama, he's been through Biden and Trump. So 5 different, but one is twice. And he could tell you each time he was told there'd be peace and we're going to do cooperation. But once this person is elected, somebody else comes in and says, no, Mr. President, we're going to do things differently. And the tone changes. That, I can tell you, is right out of Putin's mouth. Like him or hate him, whatever you want, with this man is, out of all the people I've listened to in the world speak in a way, Putin is one of the few that I truly respect for his openness and honesty. Even if it's a lie, even if he's lying, he's still better than the Western politicians. I kid you not. Anyways, China is the target. And a while back, like I said, in the Biden years, they started saying, okay, all you chip makers from China, high-level people, you need to come back home now to America. We're going to start doing things. All these people left. And then there was another order that basically said all the CEOs, tech people must leave China that are making computer chips. And then there was the squeeze on China for letting them have these high-tech computer chips. And then we have Bob Trump in office, basically, and he's keeping the same squeeze play in effect. Now, keep in mind, China retaliated by saying we're not going to allow the release of our rare earth minerals only to a select few and approved countries. They restricted the rare earth minerals. In fact, as a side note for what China is doing, there is a mine in Canada that is shuttered. It is a mine that has a rare earth mineral that's available in China and it's available in Canada, basically, through the ground. And they shuttered the one in Canada. They own this mine. They're not running it so that they can keep their edge on the technological rare earth mineral stockpile. and we're allowing them more and more. And then, like the Chinese connection with Carney, there's the Brookfield loan, and all that. Even Francois Champagne, a Canadian, got a mortgage loan for a home in Canada. Think on that. Seriously, is that not some kind of information? Or, um, tit for tat, maybe he got a low interest loan just so he can buy a bigger and more beautiful house, Mr. Champagne. Remember, this guy also is in a conflict of interest for the high speed rail project because he announced a budget for included money to go to this high speed rail project. And then months later, after that budget is passed, he's recusing himself because it's the good thing to do because his wife works at Alto. But you gave them money in the budget, but now you're going to recluse yourself. Uh, we just need a whole new system. But back to China and Iran and everything else. China is funding Iran and giving them the technology that China has, and they again proved that failed in the military aspect because Venezuela, did they lose anything, the Americans? Now it's been 45 days over here in Iran. A couple of planes, there are some casualties and there are some damage to the American military, but compared to Iran, oh, there's no comparison of the devastation on Iran. The biggest thing about Iran is that it's not your traditional military army. It's fractured in a way because they designed it that way. If the central command is destroyed, which it basically has been, they have a lot of different little regional people, so to speak, and all the different caves, mountains that they were able to build. They are apparently trying to rebuild their nuclear site that's been bombed again. So are they trying to be peaceful? And I know I'm not trying to say I'm pro-American for the war. I want world peace for everybody, and I really don't like all these things that are going on. There's also a criminality aspect of Iran with the banking system. Kind of think of like the TD Bank scandal with the drug money, and they got fined. Well, Iran is 100 million times worse for it because it is a rogue regime, so to speak. Money easily flows in and out. And if you're a conspiracy theorist, nut job like I am, and don't like ivory tower people such as the Rothschilds who own a banking system in the world, well, there's not a Rothschild bank in Iran. There wasn't one in Iraq when it was invaded. There wasn't one in Afghanistan when it was invaded. Venezuela was not a Rothschild controlled bank. North Korea is not a Rothschild controlled bank. Russia kicked out the Rothschild banking when Putin came into power shortly afterwards. And then you see how it's kind of being played out. Like there seems to be a theme here of ivory tower people. It only takes a couple to make a conspiracy at the top. And I'm telling you, the Rothschilds, and this is funny. There was a movie made in 1934 that I stumbled on. I didn't watch all of it, but it was about the Rothschild family. And the father was telling the children what to do. And it's eerie because everything that I've read about the Rothschild family and that the fact that this movie is actually available to watch, it is so creepy and eerie. The tentacles of the Rothschild are spread out throughout the world. That is something I could tell you. So yes, the Iran war is not so much really about Iran. Israel wants to do something, and they were going to do something about it. And thankfully, we kind of have Trump in office. And thankfully, like I mentioned before, the American military said, well, we either go along with it if they're going to do something and minimize our damages, hopefully, to ourselves by assisting in this strike. I kind of really hoping that there was somebody who had a plan in the United States government, and this is just me, that would basically clamp down on Israel and say, enough is enough. I'm not trying to be harsh on Israel, but my goodness, from everything I've been reading and hearing about the stuff that's happened in Gaza and Lebanon and a whole host of things, their use of tortures in their prison systems is atrocious. And everything else, will say Israel has a right to defend itself. But if you are stealing land and trying to make the Greater Israel Project, which means expanding into Saudi Arabia and taking over Syria and actually ending up right on the Egypt or the Peninsula is, the canal, the Suez Canal, and they're going to take over that side of Egypt. And you're telling me they're not being aggressive? I kid you not. The IDF soldiers, the Israel Defense Force, has patches on their shoulders of the Greater Israel Project. Israel will be a big country if Israel is allowed to continue to do what it is doing. It's nuts. But China is the big dog. America is the big dog. And they've been duking it out. In fact, Trump was just talking about how China has been trying to infiltrate and, penetrate and sabotage. And I'm trying to get to the word hijack the internet, so to speak, hacking. And, and the lady was asking, well, how do you know this? Well, he's like, we know what they're doing because we do it to them too. And, which is funny. The guy's being blunt and honest. We are also doing things to China. And the lady at the reporter asked Trump, said, yeah, but give us an example. And Trump looked at her and said, I'm not going to tell you that, but we are doing what they're doing to us and stuff. Look at all the technology that has been stolen. In fact, another Chinese national came into the United States with foreign biological material for the purpose of starting something in the United States. Again, another one from China and stuff. And then, we go talk about Canada and all the stuff that's going on. An MOU, folks, and I know the Iran stuff's over, but the China business is continuing. The MOU we signed with China for a security agreement has still not been released to the general public or to the opposition party regarding what the memorandum of understanding for the security apparatus between China and Canada. In fact, while I am talking right now, this MOU may be actually impacting me. And there's a group that's called the 50-Cent Army, basically in China. They have a cyber army of people that basically monitors their own population and report on people. They call it the 50-Cent Army because they basically make like 50 cents a post, whether they catch somebody or make a post to entrap somebody to keep their censorship thing going in China. Now, remember, I'm just a dude in the house coat, love to talk, do your own reading, do your own research, all that wonderful stuff. So, yes, I was there talking about Iran and China, and let's talk about our functioning democracy in Canada, dysfunctional democracy in Canada. We just had a by-election, folks, three elections, and remember, we had 5 floor crossers. Now, I do believe the by-elections changed nothing. Like the last election, Terrebonne or Quebec should have probably been won by the Bloc Québécois, but because of the floor crosser the week before the election, basically, with that Gladue lady, the blonde woman who made her own religious record, who just stated that because I crossed the floor, they basically gave me application so I can improve my district of Sarnia, Ontario. Yeah, well, guess what that tells us, folks? You can't get anything unless you're a liberal. And if you're not a liberal, you're not going to get anything. Right? Make it make sense. But those 5 floor crossers had more of an impact for Carney to get this majority government than the by-election did itself. And that is sad. So we got Ma, we got this Gladue lady, we got the Inuit lady up north who has a stepson and a child, both up for charges, one sexual assault, one child pornography, and mainstream media news never discussed it openly exactly who the parents were or the involvement of that person and who they're related to in their mainstream media news. That is shameful and disrespectful to the Canadian public to try and withhold information that might be relevant, important to that. When you want to make a vote, do you want to vote for somebody who may have had, baggage, right? And that's a lot of baggage and stuff. The 5 floor crossers, again, are the main reason that Carney has his majority. It's not the recent by-election. It's not the statement that Carney said, well, Canada now has a majority and they want us to lead. Well, guess what? Where we're leading to is more censorship. The fact that I'm speaking right now means that down the road, if they pass their laws such as Bill C9, which I mentioned, you can still contact your senators, people. Please contact your senators. They're discussing it this week. And I'm telling you right now, the people that are speaking up and for it are saying that we need it to protect the residential school stuff. Excuse me, but mass grave needs to be dug up before you can protect anything. The truth has to be revealed. If you can't do that, then you can't make a law or try and shut people up because they want to know the truth. All you're doing is trying to cut out the tongues of the people asking the questions. That is all that you're doing. We're, there's that. There is the other issues that they're going to go on, other laws that are trying to circumvent and basically make us more, I guess, compliant and obedient, so to speak. It is truly amazing that a government, any Western government, has to try and use coercion on its own citizens when it's a privilege to work in the government and you should actually be helping society along, not trying to stifle it and cater to special interest groups. It is sad, truly sad. It's like what's going on in British Columbia with Drippa. David Eby is lying through his teeth. He is a lawyer. He knew exactly what's going on, how things are done. Mr. Robinson is our housing minister for the federal government, the former mayor of Vancouver, stating that we are waiting on the provincial government to deal with the private property issues because it's very important that they deal with it first. Excuse me, but property rights is a federal jurisdiction because it's supposed to be in our charter, and we don't really have any property rights. These things need to be corrected within this country. And how do you give a group of people a piece of land claiming it's theirs, and then they have all these rights to it, when if we were never here, they would have never done anything with the gold, they would have never have done anything with the oil, they would have never have done anything with the coal, they would have just used the land as they were using it for all the years that they've been using it before Whitey showed up, before the European settlers, explorers came here, not the colonizers. Okay, and these people that are new here, that are reading off their freshly printed sheets of bullet points to say how bad Canada is, it's calling us colonialists and it's colonialism, and you guys stole this land. This land in North America, if you really want to look at it, has been stolen from one person or another years before any real form of a governance actually happened. So, and I also have to say is that if these reserves are rich with money, why do we have to keep giving them money? There are literally hundreds of reserves in this country that have hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank account, and yet they keep asking us for more, yet they keep asking the government to keep funding all these travel, all these events, all these committees on the taxpayers' dime. There's a select few of an indigenous group that are benefiting from being grifters, and I hate to really use that word grifters, but there are some decent people, but all they're doing is a song and dance so that they can have their free bread and a hotel stay, and there's nothing really done. And I hate to put it that way because a lot of good indigenous people are trying to do good, and there are a lot of people that are indigenous that deserve better and are being crushed by their own indigenous leaderships within. It is a quagmire of bullshit, and I really wish it could be straightened out, right? It really, really needs to be straightened out. And folks, it's almost a 30-minute mark. I like to try and keep my shows for half an hour. I like to talk. I can go on and stuff like that. I kind of wanted to make sure that this show, most importantly, if you remember from the beginning, my apologies for being misled you in a way, saying, look at this is, and all that. I'd like to get my apologies and my corrections out front first. I'm not the mainstream media. Also, please, folks, remember the scone is lit for whoever you are missing in your life, inspiration, whatever. I am lighting it today for the, I guess I'll pick for healing and reconciliation in the world, because one of my favorite people online is Frances Widdowson, who is the lady trying to reveal and bring truth to light for the indigenous, the 215 grave. She's just trying to be truthful. She is a former professor. Anyways, a person of a female chief, so to speak, wished rape upon her. Well, I would like this scone to be lit for the lady who wishes rape upon other women as a form of reconciliation, to think and re-choose her words and perhaps apologize for that appalling thing that I witnessed, and maybe many of you have witnessed as well. I don't think it's right. You know, let the truth bring out and be truthful. We don't have to hide. We don't have to threaten people to try and, convince you that what is true is true. If you need to use violence to say you're truthful, then you're in the wrong business. You're the wrong person to lead the cause. And also, positive vibes. Please visit an SPCA. And I'm starting to peter out. Anyways, folks, take care. Thank you and enjoy your days. Bye.